And welcome to Bad Ideas, the show where we look at misfires, mistakes, and miscalculations from all throughout history.
I'm Tony Southcott.
And I'm Albert Berg. Tony has our bad idea for the week. What do you got for us, Tony?
We're actually going to be talking about Southcottism, and most specifically, Joanna Southcott.
For those of you who may not be... Well, you did just introduce yourself with your last name. Your last name is Southcott.
Yes, I am related to this person. I haven't been able to find the exact genealogy. I just know that family members have claimed we were related to this person for a long time. Maybe along the line somewhere. We'll see. I just found it very, very interesting. At the beginning of Charles Dickens' A Tale of Two Cities, there's an odd reference to a cult that bears my family name. It was the best of times, it was the worst of times. It was the age of wisdom, it was the age of foolishness, it was the epoch of belief, it was the epoch of incredulity. Spiritual revelations were conceded to England at that favored period, as at this, Miss Southcott had heralded the sublime appearance by announcing that arrangements were made for the swallowing up of Loveland and Westminster.
Okay, so Charles Dickens, kind of a big deal. A very memorable opening to a book, although most people don't get that far. They get the best of times, worst of times, and they're like, and then I didn't read the rest. Call Me Ishmael or something?
They might have picked it up at Barnes & Noble since it's like $4 for the paperback, and then may have picked up that line and never gone further. This tells you a lot about Joanna Southcott, the self-proclaimed prophetess from England. She was a prophet of doom, referred to as the woman clothed in the sun, who believed that she was the one to deliver Shiloh, referenced in Genesis 49:10.
Usually people think that refers to Jesus, but
well,
I guess this lady had some other ideas, or did she think she was going to give birth to Jesus again?
She more believed that she was going to bring the second coming, because she did believe in Christ and all that. Like, that was part of her faith. It was, I believe she started out as a Methodist and kind of moved between a few different sects. At this time in England, there was a lot of extreme religious things going on, especially after some of the turmoil that was happening in Europe at the time. So it wasn't uncommon for these sorts of prophets to kind of rise up.
And they do still to this day, to be fair. There's always somebody who's predicting the end of the world, usually with some kind of religious justification. Yeah,
pretty much. That's been a constant.
At least for the last 2,000 years. I don't know about before, but it's been a good bit since people thought the world was going to end.
But most of them don't quite get to this level. There was a time where there were more than 100,000 members of this church.
Okay.
So that was a pretty good-sized cult.
That's pretty good. I mean, you know, Christianity got pretty big, and we think the world's going to end, so I think we've got something on Miss Joanna. We haven't set a date yet, at least not in the official text. Some of the offshoots have tried, but...
Yeah, and this is one of her things because she was part of that. Like, it's considered a part of Christianity. Joanna was born in the English hamlet of Tailford to a family of simple farmers. She led a quiet life until the age of 42, and once she started menopause, she began to have dreams of the apocalypse and claimed to have visitations from angels and divine beings.
Now, this woman has gotten this far in life. Did we know anything about her family situation? Is she married? Does she have kids? Does she stay single this whole time?
She is single this whole time. She worked as a seamstress and upholsterer and kind of a domestic servant in the House of Exeter.
Okay. Very important part of the mythology. If you have a woman who's a virgin and she's able to hold that up and say, I'm pure before God. Unlike you heathens who got married and had sex. Ew.
Yeah.
That's why you're not having visions.
Yeah, you were focused on the sexy times and not about the piousness. Despite a very low upbringing in the late 1700s, she became a powerful orator and communicator. Her letters reached far and wide. She wrote books in a sophisticated style that often convinced people of her divinity. Few believed that a woman of her station with no formal education would be able to create these works without a divine hand. And she also kind of played into this by saying that the words kind of sprang out of her and that she didn't even have to look at the page. She just, let her hand do the writing, and then, it would just spray out in these long rhyming verses.
People still do that to this day. That's called spirit writing. You just sort of let it flow as the spirit moves you. Sometimes they don't even think about letters. They just sort of put a pen down and let it move as it wants, and sometimes it writes stuff out.
I'm sure it does.
I think, even for a person of science, you could say that it's a result of the subconscious moving the pen without your conscious mind interfering.
Yeah, I'm more considering it as the divine nature of things, or claiming that it's divinely inspired, just spraying words out on the page. But that's just me.
Okay. I'm just saying people do it and they get words out. It's not unique to her.
Her rhyming prophecies wound their way through England, and it was quickly found that she wasn't just another street corner prophet. Newspapers at the time derided her and even lampooned her in many cartoons and editorials, but the sect of Christianity known as Southcottism grew. At the encouragement of some of her followers, she moved to London to grow her ministries. Her church began to sell paper leaflets that she called Seals of the Lord. Southcott claimed that these seals guaranteed the holder of being among the 144,000 people who would be given eternal life.
Well, that's obviously not true because the Mormons got a lock on that in like the first several thousand years of history. So
yeah, totally.
Sorry about that, lady. I'm mocking a lot of different religious stuff right now. I guess I should not.
But yeah, these were very simple, like just little squares of paper that she would write like JC on and hand to people and draw a circle on it, and that was apparently the punch ticket you needed to get to heaven. They sold them for a decent amount of money, like they were like £12 or something like that back in these times, so that was a considerable amount.
But only 144,000 of them, so you are going to have a limited amount of income from this.
Yeah, you don't want to sleep on this. It could be like an infomercial where it's like only while supplies last.
You too can go to heaven if you act now.
During this time, she also created a mystery box of sorts. Inside this box was to be her prophecies that would aid England in a time of crisis. She demanded that the only way the box be opened was if 24 Anglican bishops spent 7 days and nights learning about her works, writings, and debating what was inside the box, and then finally opening it to save their civilization.
Okay. Good luck on enforcing that one.
Yeah. That's why the Anglican Church never did it. Like, they sent a priest to one of the supposed openings of this box, and we'll get into that a little bit later.
I'm looking forward to it.
They weren't exactly spending all that time and resources trying to figure out what was in the box.
Nice try, though.
At the ripe old age of 63, Joanna Southcott claimed to be pregnant. She also claimed to still be a virgin at the time, so her followers knew it must be the second coming. She also declared at this time that the end of the world would come in 2004 or 2014. So considering this is the early 1800s, like I think it was 1812 or 1813, she was putting it pretty far out there.
Well, you want to give yourself enough of a buffer to be wrong.
Yeah, true. Like,
a lot of these guys, when they publish a book, they're like, it's going to be next year. And you don't really have time to build up a good cult following. Like, people get excited about it, but then when it doesn't happen. But if you say, oh, man, no, like, 100 years from now.
For them, they've got to have that urgency so people will sell all their belongings and give them the money.
I guess that's fair, too. Just depends on what kind of religion you want to build.
What I found really interesting about this is that she visited 20 different doctors who confirmed that she was pregnant. This, however, was the 1800s, and that was a bit of an imprecise science.
Did she... So you're saying she definitely was not? Like, she didn't give birth. We don't have any proof that she was today other than some people saying that she was.
Yeah, like, that's something that we're going to get to in just a minute.
Okay, because I was going to say... I could believe that an old lady would get, not an old lady, but, you know, has been through menopause. Maybe, like, all the eggs didn't get it or whatever, and
yeah,
somehow
like some
she got
hormonal,
pregnant. Don't
some
believe
hormonal
the virgin
change.
birth thing.
Yeah. There are people that have done it at that age, and it's a very, very rare thing, but still, that was not what was going on here. Close to the end of her pregnancy, her followers waited outside of her home, awaiting the news that Shiloh had been born. This was on Christmas of 1814. They would, however, be extremely disappointed when official church members came outside to announce that it was only a spiritual birth and that the child had been immediately taken to heaven. Also, this was about, I think it was like 17 months into her pregnancy.
Oh, well, she had, in my mind here, Tony, she thought about it. She was like, we're going to have this hit Christmas because it's Jesus. But... she didn't think about when Christmas was, and the first time around, she's like, it's too soon.
Yeah.
This is a miracle birth, so he's still in there. He just takes a long time to put together, guys.
Yeah, it's part of the whole virgin thing. It takes some time. What the officials didn't immediately tell people was that Joanna had died. The circumstances of this are still murky, as the official story that she was pregnant and died because of the childbirth, but a lot of people believed that this was actually a tumor or some sort of other condition that was giving the appearance of her being pregnant.
Oh, so it wasn't completely fabricated. She had actually possibly some physical symptom that someone could have interpreted it as her being pregnant.
Yes. Her followers then claimed that she had died of a broken heart from Shiloh being taken to heaven. She also had requested that her body be kept in repose for 4 days because they weren't sure if she was just in a trance or that if she would be resurrected, but after the 3rd day, they admitted defeat when the body began to decay.
Yep, that'll happen.
Yeah.
Gets gross after a while. That doesn't take that long.
While thousands abandoned their faith after the news, some very ardent supporters soldiered on. They believed that her prophecies would indeed bring redemption and save England. People like Zion Ward, Southcott's first successor, made and distributed pamphlets claiming that the government was causing ruin by not opening these boxes. Eventually, he would be arrested and charged with blasphemy and jailed for a time. The location of the box we talked about earlier is still a mystery, believed only to be known by members of what's called the Panacea Society. There was an attempt to open a box that someone claimed was the Southcott box in 1927, but inside was only a pistol, some loose paper, a lottery ticket, and a few other small items. The Panacea Society adamantly denies that this was the actual Southcott box. Most believe that this was a stunt by a publicist named Harry Price, just simply seeking publicity.
Well, I gotta give it to Mr. Price, because that actually sounds like some really good contents of a magic box. If you think about it, like, well, you're gonna be going through the apocalypse, so what you're gonna need is a gun, this lottery ticket, cash it in as fast as you can, there's a bunch of money on it, and...
It was an interesting gun, too, because it was rigged to blow up whenever somebody opened the box and just shoot whoever opened the box. So imagine if that was the actual box, and they got the 24 priests to sit around, and then the first thing that happens when they open it is it's just a gunshot.
Well, if they'd done the thing, Tony, if they'd sat around and thought about it, God would have miraculously changed the stuff in the box to something else.
Could be. Well, they x-rayed it first before they opened it.
Okay.
So it was an oddly built up thing. It was like a Reddit post about finding a safe.
Or the what was the TV special about the guy who found the safe that he didn't open it?
Oh, the Al Capone safe?
Yeah.
Al Capone safe, I think that was Geraldo or something like that.
Geraldo Rivera. There's a great joke about it in Sharknado 5.
105 years after the death of Joanna Southcott, a woman named Mabel Baltrop founded her church and claimed to be Shiloh of the prophecies. She found 12 apostles and set up a small sect in Bedford, England. She changed her name to Octavia and began spreading the word. The cult was known to be millenarian in nature, thinking that the world would end in the early 2000s, and was based entirely off of the teachings of Joanna Southcott.
Does she exist still today?
I mean, she's dead.
Not her personally. I mean, like her cult, the people who followed her. Are there still Southcottians?
There are some Southcottians left, and they've moved on to believing that Prince William is actually the new Shiloh.
That was a twist I was not expecting.
Yes, I couldn't find much on this current one. Like, supposedly members are less than like 70 people or something like that now, so it's a very, very small thing. So I couldn't quite get the website information. However, the Panacea Society still exists. Like the society over the decades would take out full-page ads in newspapers, sometimes even billboards and bus advertisements, deriding the government in the United Kingdom for not opening Joanna's box. In the 1970s, one of the ads read, "War, disease, crime, and banditry, distress of nations, and perplexity will increase until bishops open Joanna Southcott's box."
I find that aspect of this to be maybe the most wild, that these guys are running newspaper, like, full-page advertisements in modern times saying, you know what we really need is to open this box. We would open it, but we can't because it's against the rules. You guys, we could just have a happy life if these bishops would think about it for like 20 days and open it.
Especially because there's more than 24 bishops now. Like, that was the entirety of, like, the Anglican bishophood, like, whenever this was happening. So they could even have them working in shifts. It wouldn't have to be the full 7 days. Yeah. Like, for each bishop. On a side note, I did find a comment from The Guardian that was kind of throwing shade. They claimed that the Daily Mail used to call the Southcottians whenever it had unsold space and would offer them a cheap deal.
That's hilarious, and I believe it.
Like, especially knowing the Daily Mail. I just like that The Guardian included that little side in their article about what the current state of the Southcott box was.
Well, also, if you think that kind of thing is going to appeal to your readership, you know, like, this is the kind of ad our readers want to see anyway. They want to hear about the end of the world or whatever. They like these conspiracy theories. We'll get these guys to give us money, and we'll be making our readers happy. Yeah, it's a win-win.
It's a perfect situation for that reader base. The society is the last surviving piece of Southcottism that's sort of out in the open at this point, and it still maintains its small foothold in Bedford, England. There's no longer a religious sect in Bedford that we know of, and that's because the last believing member died in 2012. They actually had most of their members move to a certain neighborhood there so everybody could be very close together. But because the church had considerable assets, they still run a museum and have a few properties that they maintain. The museum is open, and actually you can go see it, and it details a lot more than just Joanna Southcott. It's actually about lots of different millenarian churches and priests that claimed the end of the world was happening, and they actually give researchers grants to study millenarian churches.
I'm just really bummed out this person died in 2012, like 2 years before the end of the world was going to happen.
I know, it's just a
Couldn't have
bummer.
held out just a couple more years.
Yeah, the trust still maintains a home called the Ark, just in case the Messiah does decide to show up.
They just have this house. I'm looking at a picture of it. It looks pretty nice.
Yeah, they had more than 14 million pounds in assets, so they're able to maintain a few nice things. If I ever go to the UK, I am going to visit that museum.
That sounds awesome. So they just have this house that, like, and it's kept up and I guess paid for. I assume that they must have paid off the mortgage.
Yeah,
by now.
they paid it off a long time ago. And inside the house is a room with the 24 chairs, so that whenever the Anglican Church actually shows up, they're prepared to be in that room.
There's so much optimism here. It's such a great story of, like, a thing that seemed so important and somehow has kind of lurched into modernity as a shell, like a hollowed out shell of a thing that was people's entire lives, and now it's just the stuff remaining. Like, there's hardly any actual people practicing this, right? But
yeah, and like the people that run the society, the Panacea Society, most of them are just like lawyers and curators and things like that, so it's not like they actually believe it. They're just getting paid to maintain these sorts of things. And it's interesting seeing their beliefs on it, because they're going out to colleges and talking about, like, the role of women in future prophecy, and oddly the surprising feminist values of Joanna Southcott and all this. So they're finding new things to talk about in relation to this that aren't exactly related to the religious side. Okay.
I'm fascinated by this. I want now to write, like, a science fiction / fantasy story where this society or society like this, like, gets proven to be right in like 50 years, and all of a sudden everybody has to convert to this thing that nobody had heard of, and it's just like being maintained in name only. That tickles me a lot.
That would be pretty fun. I think that's everything I've got to say about Joanna Southcott today. Al, do you have any other questions?
I don't think I do. I assume the bad idea is to predict the end of the world and tell people that you gave birth to Jesus?
Yeah, that's a pretty bad idea. Also, to say you're pregnant for 18 months. The bad idea really is just kind of falling into extreme religious cults. But this one seemed a lot more innocuous than some of the other ones we've talked about. It definitely wasn't Jim Jones.
I gotta say, yeah, the people who were in the cult didn't, like, hurt people from what you've said. There wasn't any negative side to this. They just thought the world was going to end after a while, and then it didn't.
Yeah. Thankfully for us.
Thankfully.
There's some odd things that happened towards the end where she started grappling with her own doubt as well. Like, right before she passed, she wrote in her will that she felt like that this was all just a giant deception from the devil, and that she was being influenced by him the whole time. So there's some interesting things looking at when a cult leader starts to doubt their own faith.
You gotta really admire the honesty, though, that it takes to look at yourself and say, well, no, wait a minute. What if I'm wrong? I said God told me this.
Yeah.
What do I do? Especially if you believe it. The fact that she writes this and she's, like, blaming it on Satan. It's not like she's rubbing her hands together, cackling, like, I've tricked all these people. Like, she does legitimately have this belief that she's being spoken to by something.
Yeah, there was never a point whenever I was reading this where it felt like she was insincere or trying to just make money off of it. She did those seals things, which was like a way to make money, but it never felt like she was genuinely just trying to convince people for no reason. It felt like she believed all this.
Well, that's good, at least.
Anyway, that's going to do it for Bad Ideas this week. Thank you all for listening. If you enjoyed this, please check out our YouTube channel, youtube.com/humanechoes. We've got a ton of content related to gaming, movies, and all sorts of other things. If you enjoy this, also send us your bad ideas to badideashow@gmail.com. We love hearing your guys' bad ideas.
Bye, guys.
Bye.